Tuesday, June 1st, the regularly scheduled city commission meeting. Madam Clerk, do we have a quorum?
Yes, Mayor.
It's Commissioner Ortiz's turn to do the invocation, or pledge and invocation. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We bow with me. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for all that you've created, all that you've given us, and all that you've blessed us with on this earth, Lord. We also ask that you just bless those who have served in the militaries, Lord, that they've done tremendous work, have done sacrificed their lives for our freedom. So, Lord, we bless those families who are there in those families, so that they are blessed with your grace. Lord, we ask that you be with us during this meeting. Help us to keep an open mind on the subjects that matter, and we ask that you just bless us all with Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Mayor, can I ask that you please all turn on your mics?
Mic's on. Any changes to the minutes from the last meeting? I haven't seen changes. They'll stand as approved. Public comment. This is a time that we give the public comment on any items that are not on the agenda at this time. We give you 5 minutes. Please come forward and state your name. Item 6A.
Item 6A, the governing body is asked to consider the following requests from Cashley Van Petten, President, Board of Directors, on behalf of Beef Empire Days. The use of the West Greens at Lee Richardson Zoo from 8 a.m. until 7 p.m. on Saturday, June 12th, 2021, for the annual Chuck Wagons and Entertainment in the park. This request includes closure of the drive-in gates and waiver of half the fees associated to closing the drive-thru.
Cashley here.
Christie and I, this recommendation is consistent with past, the most recent year where they held the event.
Yes. Sorry.
Entertain a motion on this item then.
I move to approve all requests as presented.
There's been a motion by Commissioner Dick. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Under. Any other discussion on this item? None being, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That item passed.
Item 6B, the governing body is asked to consider and approve a request from Whitney Buckman, President of the Tumbleweed Festival Inc. for the 29th Annual Tumbleweed Festival, specifically the use of and waivers fee for the West Green at Lee Richardson Zoo, the dates of the event, and the dates necessary to set up, allowing volunteers to drive in the gates at no charge, and closing the drive-in gates during the festival to maintain safe walking areas, and then waiver of code section 6-35 and 6-133 to allow possession and consumption of cereal malt beverages or alcoholic liquors in a public park. This request is also consistent with past requests, correct, Christie?
Yes, and it does include waiving the fee because they give us use of the tents in exchange.
Okay, entertain a motion on this item.
I move to approve all requests for the Tumbleweed Festival.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. Any discussion on that item?
I was just curious about, I know that the waiving of the cereal malt beverage and alcoholic liquors, that's something that's fairly recent, and then years past I never had a beer garden or anything like that. Does anyone know how successful it is, or?
I do not know how successful it is. I know they've had it for the last year or so when they did
I
it.
know a year, but I don't remember anything. And I know this is really a family, or more of a child-friendly, family-friendly event, and so I'm curious about ways that they're making sure.
I can't speak to their implementation of plans. I know it's a set area that they have it in.
Yeah. I want to, on the record, say I love the Tumbleweed. I think it's one of the highlights of the summer of Western Kansas, and I mean, the things that it brings in is incredible. This part of it really is hard for me to, again, being family friendly. You have so many young people running around, and so that's the only part that's really hard for me.
Yeah, we have not seen an issue with it
Okay.
when they've done it at the zoo.
All right.
As you said, they will.
Yep, I just want to make
1 year.
sure.
And I think you have to wear a wristband.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, I mean, it would have been nice if they would have been here just so that we could have asked those questions. I'm not saying it's your responsibility, but I do think it's important, with these family-friendly events, it's harder and harder, knowing, given the issues without drugs and alcohol in our community, that I don't want that to be an issue, and just so they can assure us, so I'd appreciate that. But that's not your job to tell them, I'll reach out. Thank you, Lucas.
Any other discussion? Being all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
That item passed.
The item 7A and B, I guess, are monthly activity reports. Be glad to answer any questions on those if you have them. Item C is just a customary correspondence in conjunction with the franchise agreement with Cox Communications, where they notify us if their basic service channel lineup changes. You'll see meetings of note. Some of this, of course, came out right at 5 on Friday, and so a couple of the events on there have already occurred in relationship to Garden Rapids. It was a good event. We'll also note that tomorrow night the opening of the Garden City Wind baseball season is a chamber after hours event too, so I know there'll be a lot of community activity surrounding that, and we're glad that that's started up again. It's a good partnership between us and the Pecos League to host a team here in Garden City. If there's anything that requires RSVPs, please do those through CLN. And I think we're ready for 9A, the appropriation ordinance. If approved, it would be 2532-2021A.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve appropriation ordinance number 2532-2021A.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Unruh. Any other discussion on that item? None being all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That item passed.
Item 10A, the governing body is asked to consider and approve an ordinance adjusting the energy rate for the City of Garden City electric customers. If approved, this would be ordinance number 2901-2021. Mike?
Yes, good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. At your May 18th meeting, you directed staff to prepare the necessary ordinance to amend the retail electric energy rates currently being charged to Garden City customers. The ordinance will raise, if you pass this, the ordinance will raise energy rates for all Garden City electric customers by 1 penny per kilowatt hour for a period long enough to recover the $10.1 million in the low interest rate loan provided to Garden City from the state of Kansas. It is estimated that this will take about 3.5 years at 290 million kilowatt hours being sold per year to recover the $10.1 million. And if additional kilowatt hours are sold, then it will not take as long to generate that amount of money. The average residential monthly kilowatt hour usage in Garden City is 700 kilowatt hours a month. They will see a $7 per month increase, or a total of $294 over the next 42 months. This ordinance does not change the customer charge in any rate class, nor does it change the KW, the demand charge for any large commercial account. And as you all know, this is part of the recovery of the very unusual winter weather that we experienced back in February of this year. The alternative listed is approve the ordinance amending the retail electric rates in Garden City Code Section 90-302 through Section 90-306. Do not approve the ordinance. Direct staff to take alternative action, and staff recommends alternative 1. And under a fiscal note is that this 1 cent increase in energy rates for all rate classes will generate approximately $2.9 million per year. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions?
I just have a question about reporting. Will you be reporting to us on an annual basis or a quarterly basis, or what makes sense?
However you guys would prefer. Probably, I'm thinking an annual basis, or maybe the first 2 years on an annual, and then we can get back down to a month to month or 6 months. So I'll work with Melinda and Matt.
That sounds good. Thank you.
Entertain a motion on this ordinance.
I'll make a motion to approve this ordinance number 2901-2021.
There's been a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Euler. Any discussion on this item? None being, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That item passed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item B, the governing body is asked to consider and approve a resolution to designate the future Milestone Custom Edition as a rural housing incentive district within the city. If approved, it would be resolution number 2878-2021. Trent?
Or Melissa.
Melissa?
Mayor, Commissioners,
That's okay.
afternoon. We bring before you the request to designate the future Milestone Custom Edition, which is located on 8th and Bellevue Avenue, as a rural housing incentive district. This is the first step the development needs to take before you as a governing body to be approved to move forward with the state to be designated as an RHID. The alternatives before you are you may approve the attached resolution or you may not attach the approved resolution. Staff recommends alternative 1, and I can answer any questions.
Entertain a motion on this item.
I move that we approve resolution 2878-2021.
There's been a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second, any discussion on this item? None being, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. This item passes.
Item C, 10C, the governing body is asked to consider and approve a motor vehicle nuisance resolution, and if approved, the resolution would be number 2879-2021. Trent?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is a vehicle to be towed. We have sent back the appropriate letters to inform them of the violation of this vehicle. Alternatives are you may approve the attached resolution or not approve. We recommend the resolution be approved so we can take care of that item and abate it.
And it's for all the vehicles, right?
I believe it is, yes.
Quite a few, actually. Looks like 4. Entertain a motion on this item.
I move to approve resolution number 2879-2021.
There's been a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
There's been a second, any discussion on this item? None being, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That item passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
We now come near the time for the 1:15 presentation by our accounts, Melissa Dick. And so I'm going to turn it over to Lisa Daisy-Brown. You can't, yeah, great.
She's telling me to get up your seat.
They've been practicing, yeah. I got it.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'll go through this fairly quickly, but feel free to stop me as we go. I know you've got a lot on your agenda, but we want to answer any questions. If you have questions later, feel free to holler at myself or Kristen at any time. That's what we're there for. So, our audit report today. Well, first I should introduce Kristen. I think you've all met Kristen Sekovic in charge of the audit for us. But highlights of the audit: it was an unmodified auditor's report. We didn't have any material statutory violations. If you're looking at the financials themselves, I'd encourage you to try and read the transmittal and the management discussion and analysis, as they're good executive summaries. So anytime you're looking at them, that might be a starting point instead of the 200 and some pages. Don't want to scare you away. The notes to the financial statements start on page 31, and those are always providing a good framework on how the financial statements come together. So those are something good to review too. And then the statistical section is back on, starting page 153, and always has a lot of good historical data and information to you there. But as far as the current year statements themselves, on page 19 is the statement of net position, And this year, we were just over 309 million in total assets and deferred outflows for the city. You know, over the last 3 years, that's about a $71 million increase, so quite a bit of growth in the city. The total revenue of all the city funds, as reflected on the statement of activities, was almost $84 million this past year. That is about a net increase over the past 3 years of about 4.6 million. So, the general fund balance itself, which is where a lot of your operations other than the utility funds come out of, you'll find those statements on page 24, and then the budgetary basis for it is on page 26. But fund balance ended just under 1.3 million for the general fund. The budgetary basis, as you're working on the budget with Melinda, ended up at about 1.2 million. So increases there. An item that you don't typically see, I think, on your monthly financials is your debt outstanding. And at the end of December 2020, we had general obligation bonds of about 41 million for the governmental activities. That's up about 13.8 million, as in 2020 we did issue not quite 18 million in debt for the governmental activities. It's still within the general debt limit, which we were at about 17% of that capacity. The utility funds also carry a number of general obligation bonds, and those were just under 31 million at the end of the year, down 1.2 million, even though you issued about 4.4 million in those funds to refinance bonds this past year. The limited obligation bonds, that's the city's proportional share of the STAR bonds. And there was actually about 110,000 paid down on that debt obligation. There's really no obligation to the city for that debt, but your financials do reflect your share of the sales tax revenue that comes in and the proceeds payments that go out from that.
Teresa, I have a question on, the general obligations of the utility funds, I know a lot of that's from the asset purchase from Sunflower, or from Wheatlands Electric. And the general obligation bonds, I know part of that is the new park we've done is Garden Rapids at the big pool, is that also in this year?
I think that bond issue is in this year,
Okay.
and that would be up in that 40 million
Right, I just
for the
wanted to make sure.
governmental activities.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, no surprises next year, but I thought it was supposed to be this year, I was
Yeah,
wanting to
I
make sure.
think so.
Okay.
Then the other debt that we have on the books is about 53.7 million, that's in capital leases. The largest part of that is in the utility funds for the KMEA leases with Jameson and Dogwood, about 53 million. The governmental funds have some police and fire equipment in there, it's about 747,000. Think about that. And then one number that you don't typically see in your financials that we like to point out is the unfunded CAPERS liability that the state attributes to the city. And at the end of December, that was $22.5 million. It was actually up about 3.9 million from the prior year, so up quite a bit. The enterprise funds, those are reflected on pages 27 through 29 of the financial statements for the major funds. Major funds being electric, your water and sewer, and your airport. Of course, I don't think there's any surprises with the electric fund being down here this year. We still did invest about 5.5 million in assets into that fund for future growth. Water and sewer had a very good year. Was up across the board and invested about 1.8 million into assets there. And the airport holds pretty consistent, actually pretty good this past year considering what was going on with COVID and everything. Up in current assets, up in net position, and operating revenues were up also. So, overall, the composition of cash for the various funds of the city as you're working on the budget, and similar to what you see from Melinda, that report is on page 148 and 149 of the financials. So you'll find those budgetary balances there as you're working on that information. Then just a few numbers out of your general fund. First, looking at your revenues in the general fund for 2020. Percentage-wise, taxes continue to be the largest part of the pie, just under 73% of the total this year as compared to 71% the prior 2 years. Down a little bit in police and municipal court. The others were fairly consistent to probably down just a little to make up that difference in the tax line. The taxes themselves on the next graph are made up mostly of sales tax, which is good news for us as taxpayers. The number percentage-wise was down just a little bit this year, about 2%. We were at just over 72% compared to 74% in 2019, but back where we were in 2018, so not much change. Correspondingly, then, of course, the property tax percentage was up. Comparatively, though, if you look back 10 years, sales tax at that point in time was only 69% of those tax dollars, so we've seen a nice increase. And then looking at the 10-year trend on what those receipts were in the general fund. The sales tax is the top line, and you can see we've gone from 2011 through 2020. The sales tax revenue is up about $3.3 million. That's on an increase in retail sales of $167 million here in Garden City, so very good growth. The bottom line is the property tax and motor vehicle tax dollars. You can see it's held pretty constant. Maybe some increases due to valuation in the dollars we've received. And then in 2018 through 2020, a little bit of an increase in the general fund tax dollars offset by decreases in the other areas. Overall, the 10-year mill levy in the general fund has averaged 20.13 mils compared to an overall mill levy of 38 mils. And in actual fact, the total mill levy in that 10-year period has only increased in total across all the funds 0.31 mils. So you've held it very constant. So. Expenditure-wise in the general fund, here again very consistent from year to year. I think we were up a little bit in the fire at 16% compared to 15% the prior 2 years. Down in cemetery and parks at 16% versus 18%. Capital improvements was down to 7% versus 10% in the 2 previous years. And the transfers out were 8% this year compared to 5% in the prior 2 years. So in those transfers, when those change, that's going to change your percentages on the others. Dollar-wise, looking at it for the 10-year history, you can see police and municipal court, of course, being the largest area. The increases that occurred there starting in 2015 through 2020 is largely due to the additional positions that were added into that department. Cemetery and parks, that increase that occurred in 2017 was when the city took back over the operation of the big pool. And you see a slight decrease there in 2020, of course with the pool being closed, and then those excess funds that weren't used there were actually part of the increase you see in transfers on the last bar chart there. Capital improvements was down a little bit this past year, in part because you bonded some larger activities.
And who's the employee benefits of Health Steady? Is that where Capers is located also, or is that just our health insurance and the other benefits?
It's probably a little of both. it would maybe be the employer share of the capers. And then the rec commission employee benefits is coming out of a separate fund. In total, comparing revenues and expenditures in the general fund, you know, the 10 years presented here, there were only 2 years where the revenues were less than what you spent. And those were 2012 and 2017 year ends. So a good trend, and that's what's helped maintain and increase your general fund balance. Then the last financial graph we have deals with your expenditures of federal awards. This year, once again, the city was a single audit. It had not been the prior 2 years. One thing I do want to make note of, though, is pay attention to the axis. It's going up in increments of 10. So every time it crosses that line, it's doubling, basically, or more than doubling. The transportation area, that's largely where your Tiger grants are for the railroad in 15 and 16. Those were the larger dollars there. The FAA, AIP projects are running through there. And then your ICE-T money is going into the transportation area. The increase you see in the justice area for 2020 is your Project Safe Neighborhood and COVID money. About $134,000 went into that this past year, was spent out of that, rather. And then the HUD and CDBG, this year we saw an increase there for about $509,000 that was expended for CDBG, the revolving economic loan money that goes out of there. And that is federal money because that was the seed money that started that fund. And then in the other grants, this past year, 2020, that was up also with about $803,000 in COVID grant money expended through there. So that's kind of the numbers, current numbers, as you're working on your budget process to get you in a different frame of mind and comparative. We always like to take the information that the league provides and compare for you to how we're doing to the other first-class cities around our size. So we usually look at populations between 19,000 and 100,000. We do have one extra city that fell into that mix this year. Excuse me. We added Derby. So you'll see 16 cities versus the 15. Valuation-wise, comparatively, Liberal is the smallest, and I think typically has been. Their valuation was $123 million for this past budget year. That was up about 0.28%. Dodge City is the fourth from the smallest in the group. They were at about $176 million in valuation, up about 2.9%. Now we're kind of right in the middle of the graph there. $237.8 million last year. Saw 4.14% growth in that valuation, so it was up about $9.5 million. The largest end of it is Lenexa. They were up 6.5%, about $82 million increase they experienced. The next couple graphs deal with the debt per capita and general obligation bonds. It's only as good as the information reported to the league, so I won't say that it's perfect. Liberal is in the fourth spot there, whereas in the past they've been number one is on the low end. We continue to stay in the middle, and then Dodge moves over to the other side of us. Dollar-wise on that debt, though, on the next graph, you can see where those dollars are involved. Liberal has the least debt of the group. Dodge City's right next to us in the middle there. And Lenexa continues to be on the high end with their general obligation bonds. So all of the cities experienced changes in their debt last year except for Liberal, Emporia, and Leavenworth. They held theirs. Probably a greater interest is the actual mill levies themselves in the last couple charts we have. This first one deals with just the total city levy. So just what you as a board would approve. Garden City, we're about in the middle of the pack. We were at 32.263 mills last year. And that was with no change from the previous year. Dodge City is a little, just because we compare ourselves to the neighbors is why we're looking at Dodge and Liberal all the time. Dodge City was 44.549 mills last year. That was 13.3 mills increase that they had. Well, I misspoke. They actually decreased about 0.9 mils, but they're 13.3 mils higher than we are in Garden City. So. And Liberal, they're at 52.548 mils. They're the highest of the city mill levies here of these 16 cities. They were 19.8 mils higher than we were here in Garden City, and they increased a half a mil last year. So most of the cities held their mill levies last year pretty close. I don't think anybody went over a mill increase. They were all less than that. But looking at the total mill levy that a taxpayer within the city would pay on their property though, blending all the taxing units together into that property, you'll see here that we've added this year the makeup of what the sources of those taxes are. City, county, the school district, the state, because everybody pays the same 1.5 mils to the state. And then about half of the entities include a community college. Half of them do not, and then the other miscellaneous taxing units, if the cemetery districts, townships, fire districts, all those little things could be separate,
So I know that this year we've rolled the Recreation Commission to the city, so will that other decrease? Are you planning that decreasing next year, then our city
it should.
would increase?
Well, no, for the Recreation Commission here at Garden City, it was a component unit of the city.
So it's
So
already.
it was already
Okay.
in there. If it was a component unit of a school district, for example, in some of the other entities, it may show up in school versus county versus city. Yeah. It's hard to individually compare, so when you throw them all together, you hopefully get a better picture, other than the colleges do kind of distort this overall picture, so that's separated out there. But you can see the bottom bar is the blue bar for just the cities. The community colleges are showing up in green, so you can see where those are. Garden City in total, we were at 162.857 mils. That compares to Dodge City at 182.4 and to Liberal at 191.1. So Liberal is actually 28 mils higher than we are here in Garden City. So. As far as the school districts, most of them are pretty consistent. When you get back at Fort Riley, which isn't even on this chart though, sometimes that's impacted because they get so much federal aid. So that's the highlights, where you've been, as you get to work on where we're going. So, questions that you might have.
Any questions? thank you very much. It looks good, turned out well.
It did. We appreciate all the assistance we get from your staff. We can't do it without them. They're probably glad to see us.
Sure.
Thank
Thank you so much. Oh, Teresa, I also want to say thank you for making time before and to meet individually. I know that's really valuable. It helps kind of dig deeper into these. So I appreciate you continuing to do that. So.
No problem. We're happy to do it. So, and if you have questions later, feel free to holler at us. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Item 12B, the governing body is asked to consider and approve the development agreement for Pheasant Valley 3rd Edition replat, phase 1. Melissa?
Mayor and Commissioners, we bring before you a development agreement for Pheasant Valley 3rd Edition replat phase 1. We've been working with Broad Martin and Matchless Development LLC to restart this development, which is located at Winters and Shortgrass Street. And they will be developing this area in 2 phases. The first phase will consist of 17 lots for residential homes. They will be reserving a lot for a private park, which will be maintained by the homeowners association, and the developer will be required to install sidewalks on that. And then they have been provided credit for their parks in lieu fee as well for installing this park. The Orchid Lane extension, which would have gone into the school property there on the east side, has been vacated through the plat, and so they will be using that as a utility and drainage ditch. That was a connection that was at development at one time before the school was there, and so the connection is no longer needed. So we worked with them to vacate that area. You guys have already approved the rezone to do R2 single family residential with the PUD, and that was approved by you all on March 16, 2021. The alternatives before you are the governing body may approve the proposed development agreement, you may not approve the proposed development agreement, or you may amend the proposed development agreement. Staff recommends alternative 1, and Rob Martin of Matchless Development is here if you do have any questions for him, or I can answer any questions.
Any questions?
Well, what, on the community park, what, I mean, I know private parks are, they're good to add, but how does that actually fund? You said it's by the housing authority?
It'll be maintained by the homeowners association.
Because there's a pool there, was that maintained by the housing authority?
That is maintained by the homeowners association.
Okay. Because that's not doing very well.
Yes.
I'm just concerned because, I mean, they're good to have in the community, I get it. I'm just worried about where those funds need to go to actually go toward that, or if it's enough from the association that.
In the first 2 phases of development, there, Mr. Martin was working with a partner, and unfortunately he passed away. And at that time, as things went through the legal system, that's where that homeowners association deteriorated. We anticipate with this new phase of development that they will reinstate that homeowners association, and that will refeed into not only through phase 1 and 2 with this 3rd phase addition. We'll have funds that will be able to maintain that park.
So what's included in the park? And there will be the pool area and the pool, and then also some open area? Or?
Yes, and because it's a private park, the developer will be able to develop that and how they see fit. But we will put sidewalks and make sure that the path is connected.
Yeah, thank you so much, yeah.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion on this item. I'll make the motion that we approve the proposed development agreement as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any other discussion on this item? None being all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That item passed. Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you, Mr. Martin, for building homes in Garden City. We appreciate it.
We'll see how it goes.
It'll go awesome.
Thank you.
Item 12C, the governing body is asked to consider and approve amendments to the designated spaces outlined in the current law enforcement center agreement. Chief?
He's kind of.
Afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. What you have before you is a pretty simple agreement. We're just trying to divvy up space as we grow a little bit and expand. We want to kind of shift stuff around in the LEC, and because it's a county-owned building, we have to go through the process of coming before you and coming before the county commission. What we're looking at doing, though, is more growth, more space, better space that's a little bit more usable for the staff of the PD and honestly the staff of the SO. Because we're going to vacate our evidence vault. That's going to be open. And then we're looking at trying to capture the space where the district court is down in the basement now. Because of that, we're going to have to kind of play around a little bit with what we own and what they own to include our squad room. So when it all shakes out, there's going to be a difference of about 67.5 square feet. So I can go way down.
Just a little bit of wiggle room there.
Yeah. I'm sure that will be taken up somewhere. So.
But we need more office space. They need a little bit more room as well. So that's kind of why we're doing this and just going through the process. But I can answer any questions you might have.
I was curious on the garage. So you have the same access to the garage, or will you have additional spot? Because I know that we have tons more cars and equipment than they do at the sheriff's office. Will you still have the same access, or do you have to change that at all?
No, it'll be the same access. Nothing changes in our parking spaces right at the garage. So.
Entertain a motion on this item.
I move to approve the amendments to the designated spaces in the law enforcement center agreement.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second. Any discussion on this item? None being, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Good luck.
Yeah, you can live through a remodel, I don't know.
Mayor and Commissioners, if we could revisit 12A, I think it would be appropriate if you didn't have a problem with the financial report as presented, that there would be
A motion.
a motion, a second, and an affirmative vote to accept the annual financial report as presented.
I move that we accept the comprehensive annual financial report as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any other discussion on that item? None being, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That item passed.
Thank you. Sorry we let that get by.
That's okay.
Item D, Parks and Recreation Director Aaron Stewart will provide an update on Southeast Park future phasing, which includes an architectural and landscape architectural services RFQ, and requests Mayor Cessna appoint a member of the City Commission to the interview committee. Aaron?
Afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. So as you'll see in the consent agenda, we're moving along with Phase 2 of Southeast Park, which includes the trail construction, kind of final grading, and there's some work in the drainage there for the neighborhood. So that part's done. Now it's time to put the stuff that we all see on top. And what we'd like to do is get an architect and landscape architect in order to complete the final phases of this project, with the idea that they're going to bring a kind of an artistic approach to lighting, buildings, and so it connects through the park. So that's kind of the idea, and we'd obviously like a commissioner to serve on that committee for selection. And I'm happy to entertain any questions that you have about it.
And I did talk with Commissioner Euler, and she agreed to be on that, sit on that committee.
Excellent.
Okay. Any questions for Aaron? None? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks. Now I'll let Finance Director Hitz review some of the taxing funds and the support funds with you.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Well, and I did want to know how you thought the audit went. I was going to ask your opinion, and I didn't get a chance to. As far as how the audit went for you, and then were you pleased with the audit, or comments that you might have had?
Very pleased with the audit. I'm glad to finally close 2020, but only working 2 years.
Yeah, well, it was exciting. It was really great news. So.
I would like to let you know that GFOA, the Certificate of Achievement, there's only 25 cities in the state of Kansas that get that, and we're the only city west of Wichita.
Oh, wow.
So
That's impressive.
I think that's a real important fact for all of you to know.
It's a good fact to know.
And it's been 20, isn't it, for 2020?
Yeah.
That's a great track record.
Okay, so we're in the June 1st area of your notebook. We are starting some of the taxing funds here and also some of the support funds that go along with it. In your city manager's report, you did get a draft of what we are considering for capital projects. I thought I'd go through that first and then we'd go through Fund 40. But these are the projects that were identified in the CIP program. The airport terminal, we're showing that as getting funding in 2022 with a GEO bond over 20 years. The cemetery, we're looking at a mill and overlay this year with a GEO bond, that'd be a 10-year bond. The expansion of Valley View Cemetery, $200,000. We're looking at 2022 for that with a GEO bond. The bell tower repair will come out of the budget in Fund 7 at $50,000. Then we go down into our local streets. We do have the Fulton Street drainage at $600,000. That'd be a GEO bond for 10 years, starting this year. Leslie and LaRue repair, that's going to come out of the budget in special traffic way. There's a couple items here that I want to talk to you about on reallocation. Last year, we did a bond issue for the Garden Rapids at the big pool, and then we also did Southeast Community Park. Southeast Community Park has a project that's going to happen this fall, but it's going to have roughly $900,000 left in that bond issue. I did talk with our bond counsel, Mary Carson, and I asked her if there was a way to reallocate some of the Southeast Community Park since we wouldn't be using that money. This year, we would have to wait till next spring to get 2nd Street done for the Garden Rapids at the big pool. We've got that under engineering right now, and we're adding some parking spaces also along the east side, and then looking at Clint Leitner. The parking lot there is pretty close to being ready for asphalt. So we talked to her and she said, yes, we could reallocate those funds because of the way the ordinance is written. There's leeway to do that. So if you wish to reallocate, we could get 2nd Street, Maple to Riverside done with those funds at $350,000 in 2021. And then I'll go over another one down below. Jenny Barker had a drainage issue that we're budgeting for out of Special Record Park, Fund 32, that's $75,000. We've got the design work on the 3rd fire station, $368,000. That's coming out of your sales tax fund that we share with the county. Down in parks, we have Dean Wiley Playground at $200,000. That's in your Special Record Parks budget. Southeast Community Park, $750,000. That's a placeholder until you get information back, from the study. But we're looking at $750,000 there next year over a 10-year period of time. We've got the skate park in here. We're going to look for some grant matches, and if those come through and we need to have some matching money, we would use a GEO bond on it for 10 years. We're looking at $800,000 for a skate park in 2022. The public restroom, that would be on Tally Trail, $80,000. We're going to try to get that in the parks budget this year, funded out of there. Ben Grimsley Lighting, $375,000. We're going to try to get that out of the parks budget. I'm not going to guarantee that, but that's what we're going to try. Then it might have to go to a GEO bond if you decide to do it. Clint Leitner parking lot is the other reallocation at $75,000. Get that done this year. And then the zoo needs to renovate the aviary. I think you've heard Christy talk about that. They've got some specs that they need to get completed, but they thought they'd have everything ready for 2022, so we're going to try to budget for it as a repair and maintenance item, out of the zoo.
So it's just a renovation and not an expansion?
It's not an expansion. So we're trying, it's just a full repair.
Yeah.
So once we take a look at some of those, we can go back to Fund 40, and we started out in cash, $437,233. We do get the PFC allocation, that's from the airport. We have $50,000 this year, $60,000 next year. Ad valorem tax this year, it's at 1.6. With the debt that we've taken on with the pool renovation, we're looking at close to almost 2.5. We're looking at 2.487 in 2022. Coming on down, you have back tax, you have motor vehicle tax, recreational tax. There is one item down here, down below on transfer capital improvement. I think all of you remember it, last year at year end, we transferred the money that was left in the big pool budget and put it into the 05. So we're going to take part of it to help out with mill levy, $250,000 in 2022. You have another $250,000 that'll help you out in 2023. You can decide to use all of it in 2022 if you want. Just depends on how everything else comes out. But there's still a little bit of money left there. When we go down below, we have the interest on the bonds in 2021. These are exact numbers here because we've already had all of our bond issues. 750, 144. We're estimating down below to bond Fulton Street drainage at, these two numbers are switched around. Fulton Street drainage would be the $600,000 and the cemetery would be $300,000 for a total of $900,000. Debt service on those two projects over 10 years is $112,500. So that's been allocated into your actual numbers in 2022. So you have your interest on bonds and principal on loans. And then we do a 5% coverage on your bonds just to kind of have a cash balance built in there. So that's how the bond and interest fund comes out the way it is right now. That could change. Okay, then we have Fund 55, which is the health insurance fund. And we had a carryover of $787,778 coming into 2021. We have retirees paying into this, city departments for their employees paying into this, and then also the employees paying into this fund. We come down below in the 2021 expenses. The largest is our health insurance premium. We're also looking at, this is where you fund your Grow Well clinic is out of here, and any of their operating costs. So we have total expenses in 2021 of $4,645,778, and cash carryover going into 2022 of $200,000. Same revenues in 2022. We are proposing a transfer from the health insurance reserve fund to make up for the total expenses in 2022. We will just transfer what we need to keep this fund in the black, but that's kind of our estimate for now. We're seeing increases in our health insurance due to using up the reserve at Blue Cross Blue Shield, not our reserve, but at Blue Cross Blue Shield.
So the 300,000 is based on just increases in premium, is what you're estimating?
Yes, yeah.
Have you received new premiums from them, or these
Not
are
yet.
just?
We don't usually get that until the end of August, about 2 weeks after we
Right,
adopt
after
the
that,
budget.
yeah.
However, that changes now, right?
Oh, that's right.
Calendar, so we'll get the opportunity to change that if we have to.
Yeah. Okay, the next page is your health insurance reserve. We started out this year with $2,539,297. We've got some funds invested there, so you have some interest income. We are showing down below a transfer to health insurance of $593,450. You have a cash carryover to 2023, $1,986,550. So still very healthy. And we've got the airport fund next. There is detail behind these sheets in the airport area to show you if you want to see who all are ones that rent hangars and rent space at the airport. You'll see all of that. Rochelle does a really good job of keeping her annual lease payments detailed out here. We have $966,731 that we carried over into 2021. Airport is unique. They have, property tax and then all of their operating income. So they had $655,000 in ad valorem tax this year with some expenses, and you'll see those later on. We're going up to $990 in 2022. So you've got all of your ad valorem tax, motor vehicle tax. You come down here, you've got collections for utilities. You've got your FBO payments. Rochelle and I talked this morning, the flight deck is most likely going to be closing here sometime soon this year.
Yep.
And probably not have a chance to open up in 2022. Maybe the last 2 months. of the
Yeah,
year,
maybe the
but
last 2 months.
We're not gonna count on it.
Construction goes as scheduled, yeah.
Keep your fingers crossed.
Yes, yes.
And so that shows total income, or total available of $2,115,400 in 2021, and $2,139,300 in 2022. When we come down here into the salaries, Rochelle is proposing a increase in a custodial worker, and I'll let her talk to you about that.
So we're looking at onboarding 1 full-time and 2 part-time custodial workers for the new construction of the terminal and all the custodial services that come with it, which include the airport administration building as well as the control tower. So looking at that and having that input from our staff, providing those services, and they'll also be doing some little maintenance items such as light bulbs, some light stone removal in front of the terminal, different services in that area. So they're kind of going to be a jack of all trades for us, but as well as their main function is custodial support.
Rochelle, is there a corresponding contractual service? Is that under one of these 5347s?
There
that
is.
would go down?
Yep, so in the maintenance contract, janitorial. Sorry, I'm trying to get
Fuel service.
Yeah, yes, right above it, or below it, yeah, janitorial service, that's the contract for now. There is gonna be a little bit of a couple phases and some transition between onboarding our staff and getting them trained up, and then the contract expiring with our current services. So we're kinda gonna have a little overlap in that, so that doesn't necessarily go down in 2022, but in 2023 it will be completely eliminated.
So I see the custodial worker here, the one, and you talked about 2 part-time. Will they become in 2023 then, the 2 part-time?
So the 1 is for the full-time
Right.
on the budget sheets, that's how it calculates into the benefits. But the cost that's allocated to that line item is actually for the 1 and the 2
Okay.
part-times.
So it's a 2 part-time.
Mhm.
Alright,
So it just shows up as the
part-time.
1
The
full-time.
2 part-time are in temporary seasonal in
Okay.
010.
So you said in 0, I see.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, the proposed was different, we changed it.
Okay.
So that shows total salaries and benefits on your next page in 2021 at $609,450 and in 2022 $705,650. Coming down through the expense line items, these are staying pretty consistent here. If you talk about janitorial service, you've got your repair buildings, repair grounds, repair of the runway. All of these are very consistent in prior years. Utilities electric is starting, to go up. There'll be construction in progress using utilities out there for that. Down in commodities, staying pretty consistent there.
Is the increase in telephone expense related to the new wireless, or not wireless, the new costs associated with now having?
Yes, the
Fire.
duress alarms and the monitoring systems that we're gonna be put in place to increase our security, but as well as the monitoring systems that are for the building functions that will be able to contact our on-call maintenance personnel in case there's a system failure or something that needs to be addressed. So all that goes into that additional cost.
And I know fuel costs have gone up overall.
Mhm.
Are you keeping the same margin between what we pay for it and what you sell it at, or is it just an exchange? I mean, mean, do we make dollars on fuel, or are you still trying to keep the same spread, or is it?
Yeah. So, sorry, as the expense, the fuel, that's for our equipment.
Okay.
In your revenues in the income part of the airport, the fuel flowage fee, that is a set 6 cents per gallon that is purchased, that's coming onto the airport. So that's a sustainable amount, and that's a market value rate for, airports of our size, yeah, and it stays pretty consistent.
So under airport improvements, 6001 for 2021, we've got concrete repair, asphalt, and road reseals at 40,000. SWPPP and SPCC at 10,000.
Stormwater pollution prevention plan and the spill prevention countermeasures.
And then we've got roof repairs at 60,000 and hangar door repair at 30. In 2022, building number 71 upgrades and roof repairs at 60. What is building 71?
It is a additional facility that we're upgrading to use as additional shop space for our employees. We're kind of running low, however, we also are upgrading that to be able to potentially rent it in the future for another revenue source.
And then in new equipment others, 6100.08 for 2021, we've got a steer lease at 6,000, a 2020 pickup at 32, an SUV replacement of the Crown Vic at 45,000, a mower replacement at 25,000, a rotary plow for the loader at 20, and tower radio replacement at 20. We come over to 2022, we've got the same skid steer. We've got 15,000 35,000 on a pickup, 23,000 on a mower replacement, 20,000 on the radio tower replacement, 30,000 on a hanger generator, and I'm going to have Rochelle talk to you about 2 tractors with attachments at 250,000.
Yeah, so we currently have 2 tractors that are no longer cost effective or efficient for us, so we're looking at replacing both at the same time, reaching out to some vendors. It looks like if we buy 2, we get a larger discount on some of those, and they'll be able to swap the implements and attachments. That way we can utilize them for different functions, but as well as we'll get 2 mower decks so we can mow the airfield at the same time as well.
So that shows total expenses in 2021 of $1,475,700, carryover into 2022 of $639,700, and then total expenses in 2022 of $1,789,300, cash carryover into 2023 at $350,000, which gives us total expenses for the budget at $2,139,300. Fund number 61 is airport improvement. We've kind of split this into 2 different funds, 61 and 62. 61 is for the ongoing grants that we have. 62 is for the terminal grant. And I'll let Michelle talk to you about those.
Yep, so just like Melinda said, Fund 61 is for our normal AIP projects, and then we broke out Fund 62, and that will be the fund and different GL codes for that, depending on which funding source or expense for different grants that we've received or expenses that we're going to incur, and that way we can keep them separated for audited reasons through the FAA, the cities, and anybody else that asks. We will have a clear accounting of all of our revenues and expenses. And then this is going to be once we get done with the terminal projects, this Fund 62 in a couple of years will go away and we'll go resolve back into our Fund 61. But this was the way that accounting, Melinda and Amy really worked hard on this, and we went back and forth for many, many times to figure out how we're going to do this correctly, and this is what it turned out. So it'll be easy for us to run reports and see where we're at and the expenses and everything. So Fund 62 is for solely the airport terminal project.
And I think they really like the reporting that way too, don't they?
Yeah,
Especially with
yes.
the CARES grant money in there.
Yes, yeah,
That's
all the
gonna be
different
obvious.
sources,
Yeah.
yes, this will be very helpful.
Yeah. Any other questions on airport for Rochelle?
Thank you.
Looks good.
Hey,
Keep up the good work.
Thanks.
Okay, so Fund 72. This is the Recreation Department operating fund, but Fund 72 has all of the activities that go on with the Rec Commission. So I need to explain this a little bit because the Rec Commission in the past, when they were separate, we did their mill levy, we gave them the money, they took care of all their activities, but they also took care of all their maintenance of their grounds. We decided to keep the maintenance of the grounds in the Parks Division in the general fund. So basically, Fund 72 is all of the activities, sporting, arts, Garden Rapids. It has all of the enterprise. It's kind of like an enterprise fund, but it also has to have a little bit of ad valorem tax and motor vehicle tax to it, much like the airport. So you're going to see when you look at 2021 budget, the amounts that are in there for 2021 revised. This is the amount that we levied for them, that we would have been sending over to them, but now we're getting to keep it in this fund. So these numbers are going to be larger than what you're going to see in 2022 because they needed the 2021 money for maintenance. So we're going to see probably an increase in your general fund. Even though you have a reduction in recreation, you're going to see a little bit of an increase in your general fund for the maintenance of the recreation facilities. So 2021 numbers actually came from the budget. When you see the ad valorem tax, motor vehicle tax goes down in 2022. We also show, we base the line item 3301.27. This is the aquatics admission. We base that off of the $3 model that you had, that you approved, along with the expenses that went along with the $3 model. But as you can see, they do take in a lot of income from athletics, fitness. They have their concession stands. And so, is there any questions on the revenues for the
With
recreation?
Healthy Options, which I just want to say thank you.
In concessions?
Yeah, it's really neat. It's a really great addition.
So like I say, we started out the year in 2021 with a zero cash balance. And so we have revenues coming in 2021 of $3,082,900. In 2022, we've taken that down to $2,483,300 due to the reduction in property tax.
So Melinda, the grant whatever that number is, 3010.12, the grant dash rec foundation, is that just in case we apply for grants and get those? Or was it just a placeholder?
That's kind of like your grants that you get from sponsorships.
Yeah, so we'll get grants from CVB for economic impact that we do, like the Siege or some of the baseball tournaments. So that's really what that line item has traditionally been, is some localized, what we would consider a sponsorship or a grant. So
if there's naming opportunities or things like that, that's where those dollars would go in?
What do you mean naming opportunities?
Oh, like People's Field, say if you had People's Field and someone sponsors a ball field, would those dollars go in there?
No, this would be more like the advertising that we trade in kind for the sponsorship on a uniform or a shirt, or CVB giving marketing dollars to promote the program, versus something of that scale. Typically, this is part of the changeover. Typically, all those came under sponsorships in the past, and we had a grant line item that was geared more towards, say the Trails grant that Southeast Park is getting. We would have called that out separately.
Well, I was kind of expecting to see the grant from the Finnet Foundation for the new splash park. So I guess when I saw a grant, that's what I was wondering. I wondered why the Finnet Foundation's grant wasn't in there. Is it somewhere else?
It is actually in the project fund for Garden Rapids.
Okay. I couldn't figure out where it was at. So.
Yeah,
All right.
it's in a project fund.
I just assumed that was where that was going to be when I saw that. So okay.
Yeah. Any other questions in the revenue areas? Like I say, this is all new to all you guys, so Now we have 721 as operations. We have 6 full-time people in this area along with their benefits. So 2021, that's $475,600 and $506,900 in 2022. These are all their operating expenses coming down through here. The consultant fee that you see, that's $98,000 in 2021. The major portion of that is your master plan project of $75,400 is in that line item. They do surveys and background checks also out of that line item. And the rest of them are pretty much operating expenses there. And you have vending, supplies for vending and concessions on the next page, and small amounts for new equipment, office, and other. So the total expenses and operations is $761,300 in 2021 and $707,400 in 2022. When we get to the aquatics, 722, this budget was based off of what we got from the consultants with some additional capital outlay in 2021 added. There's $95,000 there. That'll pay for a portion of those cabanas that we don't have enough money in the 05 fund for, and then any other unforeseen items that we need to have down there to keep it open and keep it running as it should be. Of course, you've got, in here, you've got all of your lifeguards and concession workers along with the benefits. So you're looking at $299,550 in salaries and benefits and $304,930 in 2022. Down below, you see the operating expenses, and then you see in commodities, you're going to see your concession supplies. So we have total expenses in 2021 of $536,100, and in 2022 of $487,630. And I just put in a little graph of what you had on the $3 fee. There is a section in Recreation Commission. Would you like to talk about the aquatics at all? How things went the first day?
Sure.
While we're on that?
So obviously it wasn't the best conditions to have a grand opening with the temperatures being a little bit on the chilly side, and especially starting on an overcast. Turned into a pretty decent day, although again a little chilly. We 682 came to the grand opening between noon and 2, and for the day we had 1,002 people come through the door. We did a total sales of about $2,700 with about 1,000 of that, a little over 1,000 of that being concessions, which is pretty impressive considering we fed people for 2 hours for free and gave them free drinks. So, all in all, I think it went really well. The staff, obviously this is a learning curve for us since it's very different than anything that we've operated before. But I thought they did a really good job, both with the opening ceremony and the execution of keeping people safe throughout the day. So we'll keep adapting as we go over the next 2 weeks. Obviously the weather didn't really cooperate with us the past couple days, but we are open. We did cancel some things this morning, but we are open this afternoon for regular operations. So the forecast for the week looks good to have everything going for the rest of the week. So. Any questions about Saturday?
Well, it turned out really
It
good.
was really well done. It was seeing that many people waiting to go in was pretty exciting. So there's a lot of excitement.
Yeah, it was pretty fun and a good article in the paper with a great picture.
Yeah.
All right.
723 is the arts. This section we kind of like to keep separate just in case, in future years we have more that we want to add to this. New equipment other in 2021, that's for a new projector, I think, for movies.
Yes, so we have ordered, we do the silver screen Saturday nights. We have ordered, it's already been ordered and it's on its way, and we were hoping to get it rather soon since we start these, but it was time for both the sound equipment, the control center, and the projector to be replaced. So in that give or take, is right around $13,000 of what we ordered, so, it's got twice the lumens, which means hopefully we can actually start our movies just a little bit earlier.
That'd be nice. Yeah, some of us go to bed earlier than other people, so.
2021 expenses, $24,750, and 2022, $18,150. Athletics, 724. We've got 3 full-time positions in this area, along with their benefits. That totals in 2021, $281,850, and in 2022, $314,750. Contract services, I think is one of your larger items here, and is that like for your umpires?
Correct, sports officials come out, they're contractually employed, and obviously we pay a lot of officials, so.
And then on down below, utilities, electric, that is for the gymnastics building. And we do have merchandise expenses, I think that's a lot of your supplies, athletics, is a lot of your shirts.
Yeah.
For the teams and.
So everything from uniforms to, and then some of these items would be some of our resale items like leotards and gymnastics and things like that, so.
And then we do have 2 lease purchase agreements, one on the Clint Lightner field, $52,970 is the payment on that annually. And then the O'Bray gymnastics building is $163,248 annually. And then new equipment other, that's just various equipment that you need on the fields.
Yeah, we generally have to replace bases, plates, that kind of stuff. We replace them every year, but it's only a grouping every year. There's not a 5-year lifespan.
So the lease on the O'Bray, so I was under the impression that the building was donated, or is it?
The building was donated.
So this is
the
for the construction
renovation
costs? Okay.
is what we paid for, so. We made the first payment in 2019, so there should be 8 payments left, if I'm doing my math right. So yeah, we've already got a couple years in.
Seems to be going well. Every time I drive by there, it's
Yeah.
always full and there's a lot of activity going on. So.
It continues to pick up, which is good. I mean,
I've heard you have waiting lists, so.
we do it in certain classes. We actually just got a new head coach who is really driving some participation to it. So it's been a good addition. You know, obviously shutting down 2 weeks after you open doesn't help. This year we've really noticed we've steadily grown every month, and we do expect somewhat of a little bit of a lull in the summer. That tends to be the team's off time. But we'll see if that actually happens. Maybe we can stay a little more consistent than we have.
And then the final area is fitness. We keep that separate. There's 2 full-time employees in this area, along with benefits. You're going to see one of the, the larger items here is for rent for office space at $138,000 both years. And then, of course, utilities and small amounts of new equipment other. So total expenses in fitness is $431,882, and then $452,501 in 2022.
And I'm sorry, I have a question. So this is new, it's from what we used to have last year. So where is the core at? Is the core the office?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
The lease.
So is that the rent office space? Is that the core?
On
this one it says 138,000.
Yes, that's the lease agreement for Core Fitness.
Okay. Well, I was looking for the name of it because the other one said O'Bray Gymnastics, so this one didn't. So that's why I was pretty sure it was, but I wanted to ask.
So that brings us to total expenses and recreation of $2,503,400 in 2021. We carried over $579,500 into 2022, showing total expenses then in 2022 at $2,462,800. We had our cash balance in for going forward in 2023 is 600. Gives us total expenses of 3,062,800. The next fund is Fund number 73, and this is a Recreation Department Reserve Fund. We're currently in the process, once we get one more vendor to not deposit into your recreation fund. Once we get all that cleared up, we will be closing out that bank account that they have and be putting it into here as contributed capital. And so that'll be a reserve fund for future equipment. So you've already got that built in, so. And that's all I have for today.
Questions? Any questions?
Sorry, I asked.
No?
No, that's good.
Thank you.
I mean, it was all new this year, so. Next meeting will be all of the general fund, so. But it might be easier to look at it all at once and then we get to take a break and we get to get our evaluation in. And take some more breaks.
Yeah, take another break.
Take some longer breaks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Good job.
Concludes the business items. Under 12, new business, with the exception of the consent agenda. If you don't wish to pull any of the items off, the consent agenda would be items F1 through 5.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda for items 1 through 5.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's been a second. Any discussion on this item? None being, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passed.
Ready for commissioner reports.
Commissioner Ortiz.
First again.
Yep.
Good. Keep it short for the rest of you.
There you go.
No, this weekend was absolutely great attendance by the community to show up at the Grand Rapids, at the big pool grand opening. So that was awesome to attend. Also, just there's probably going to be continued congratulations and applause to everybody involved. IT to putting out, number of videos and flyers and whatnot. But yeah, it took the whole community to get this done, and applause go to everyone. So not just the construction builders or whoever, it's everybody. So I'd like to think that we do recognize everybody who has played a hand in that project, and there's more to come. I know this is just the beginning of some great things coming to Garden City, so I look forward to the bright future of Garden City with all the great leaders and all the great professionals and individuals involved. So I just like to extend that thanks to everyone involved. So also to our great leaders in the military. That was Memorial Day weekend this yesterday and this weekend. So just be with those who have served and have lost loved ones. They have just laid their heart out for us as citizens to be able to enjoy what we have. So just an extension of that appreciation to those soldiers and their families. And I know there's a lot of other things, but I think I can probably stop here. So thanks.
Commissioner Euler.
It was a great pre-meeting. I was thinking earlier when they were talking about community involvement, and if you didn't have a chance to file for elected office, or maybe you aren't interested in serving on an advisory board, this is a great way to really be involved in where you see our community going over the next 20 years. I mean, it's just amazing. And so I would encourage anybody, if you see a QR code, to fill out that survey, because that's how we know what to do. I mean, I think it helps to guide the city for the next several years, and the community and all of the nonprofits and economic development and downtown vision and all of those different entities as to this is what the community wants. I got a chance to drive down Jenny Barker Road and see the expansion, and it looks very nice. My husband was not as thrilled with the detail that I went into as far as what went into it, but it was very impressive, and the sidewalk, it's just very, very nice. Nice walkable, and so congratulations on getting that done, and to everybody who had a hand in that, so that's all I have.
Commissioner Dick.
Same thing, great, grand opening to Garden Rapids, so thanks to everybody who made it possible, Aaron and Jennifer and everybody. And like Aaron said, it was a really good article in the newspaper, so thank you for taking that. I've seen that come up multiple times in different Facebook groups where they said, hey, go look and actually see what happened. And so people are using that as a good reference on why we did the project and so forth. So that's great to see some of that local coverage that everybody latched onto. If you didn't see it in the Cox communications stuff, they are saying that they're participating in the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program, which is assisting people or households that were impacted from COVID on their internet. So there's some details on that Cox, how you can get some money back through them, and if you qualify. So take a look at that. Sorry, I have a whole bunch of things that pulled up my iPad. Sales tax collections. If you look at the number, if we have the citywide, the whole sales tax number, that was off the charts good.
Yes.
This last report of this, so I mean, we lose some of that comes just because of the star block, but I mean, if you look at that number overall, that's the best that I have seen and possibly the best ever. We don't go far enough back to make sure that I do, but I mean, looking at other numbers, I mean, that possibly was the best collections we've ever done. So that's good to see. And then, I think Commissioner Unruh mentioned, or somebody mentioned, Garden City Wind, opening game June 2nd, which is tomorrow. And there is a pre-game tailgate sponsored by CVB and the Chamber of Commerce. So be there. Welcome back, Garden City Wind, to our nice city. Thank you.
Commissioner Hunter.
Well, I want to just echo, I knew everybody would talk about the grand opening at Garden Rapids at the Big Pool. I just don't call it the Big Pool because it's, in case I forget, so a lot of other people. It was extremely exciting, like I said, seeing the numbers of people who came out, even during the cold. There was one guy who was really smart, he wore a bathrobe, which I thought, next time I'm going to remember to do that. I had quite a conversation with him. He said he actually wears that everywhere. So I can't remember his name, but I'm very impressed with his resourcefulness. I thought that was really good. I also want to just point out that, Garden Rapids is a really great example of where your voice matters. And so when what people said they wanted is what they got. And I think that was really exciting. The Lazy River, the slides, hopefully the slides were exponentially better than what they thought they were going to be, because, yeah, all of them are very exciting. Some of them are very scary. So, well, for some of us, they were quite surprising. But just to let you know, I mean, your voice does matter, which talks about Commissioner Orla, where she mentioned, understanding this is really a time to think about what Garden City can be. So if you have 3 to 5 minutes of your time just to really take the survey to talk about, our next comprehensive plan. I want to tell you, you look at the last 10 years that we've accomplished as a community together, the next 10 years, I mean, are just going to be as exciting. So make sure to do that. These kind of things tying together. Now, Jenny Barker Road, I did drive down that very slowly. I heard from some residents that they were greeted by our Garden City Police Department, and it was slow over the weekend. So just please watch some of those things. And unfortunately, they're contributing to our economy in ways that they didn't expect. But I'll tell you, Jenny Barker Road, it's really hard to remember that now it's open and so it can be used. So it's kind of exciting to see all of the things that happened. I didn't go into detail about it, but I'm excited about riding down it again. I loved going down that on my bike. The other thing I want to make sure and mention, 2 things. On the 12th of this month, there is the Garden City Police Department. Their Explore program is hosting a run. So any of us who want to run, you can also walk. It's a 5K, but it's for a really good cause, and I know that they're very excited about it. Come out and see me beat my son, Drew. And if I don't, then I need some help making sure that I beat him. So I'm not hinting to anybody, but this matters. The last thing I want to talk about is Memorial Day. This has been a really special time in our community. And Memorial Day, I did miss the band a lot. I loved going out and hearing the band, and I know, but as I look through the list of names, more and more we're losing some people who have given so much, not only to our country, but also to our community. And so I was able to, I knew 3 or 4 of them personally, and so I was able to send notes to their families and just tell them how much I appreciated it. But one of the things I loved is hearing their name read at the cemetery. Actually a celebration of our freedoms and the freedoms that we've given. So Memorial Day means a lot more to each and every one of us as we see more and more people, and as more and more people. It's important that we really celebrate that, and so it was a wonderful time just to relax and to reflect. So with that, I'm finished.
All right, just to follow up on Commissioner Euler and Unruh, there is a meeting about the comprehensive plan and getting input at the Finney County Library on the 3rd, which is Thursday, and 6:30 to 7:30. So if you can make it out to the Finney County Library on Thursday, 6:30 to 7:30, and give your input, that would be great. That gives us input on how your community will move forward into the future. I just want to echo what the other commissioners said about the great grand opening that we had at the Garden Rapids at the big pool. What a great addition to our community. It just enhances that area and our zoo, and really makes us a destination location for our community. Anything else? No, I think that's it. That's all I've got. I think all the other commissioners took everything else. Oh, I did have one other thing. I know I've been receiving quite a few correspondent emails on residential address 1203 Labrador from a citizen on some issues that I guess that citizen has with that. And I was wondering if Matt, could you give me give us an update? I don't know. I think I get more emails than the other. I know the other commissioners have mentioned it, but I'm getting a few too. But I didn't know if you could give us an update on where we're at on that.
I'd be glad to. I'll have probably give the staff a little bit of a heads up, listening in the other room to planning staff and police department staff can come in and address some specifics. In general, I would say that not unlike other code enforcement complaints or complaints against properties, there's time expectation usually on this part of the person making the complaint that gets resolved, and not only gets resolved, but somehow that there's some way that for lack of a better term, magically never happens again. And of course you all know otherwise. We do have notice requirements, so when there's a violation that we see as well, we'll follow up on the complaint if we see it as well, at the same interpretation, give the property owner due process to bring the property into compliance. And if it's not, then there's due process by which we notify them and give them an opportunity to come speak to, depending on the complaint, us or you or whoever may be the adjudicator of it, prior to taking a final action. So the version of the final action would be something like you saw today. There was a motor vehicle nuisance at an address on 9th Street, or from time to time you'll see a code issue it's a nuisance code violation that'll end up on the agenda. Usually by the time it gets there, that can take a while. Now, if the violation appears, goes away, comes back again, goes away, comes back again, that depending on the facts, that can restart the clock a lot of times on that. So sometimes you end up chasing some of these things. But there is a plethora of complaints associated with this property, and at this time I'll let Trent and Chief Pruitt go over what they've been doing. Their staffs have been doing it, the property in question.
Yeah, so I'll go first. Our staff this year for 2021, we've been out and physically made a case on it 9 times, 7 times in 2020. We've had multiple other drive-by just to check the activity and status of that project or that property, and not made an active or put a case into the system with it. So 9 official ones this year, 7 last year, and multiple other undocumented drive-bys.
So for the police department, we started receiving emails on this round for this address was around March 7th. Since that time, we've responded up there formally 40 times. So in that, we've taken some sort of enforcement action, and by enforcement action, it could be us making contact with the residents of the house. Warnings, tickets, offense reports, or just doing an investigation. Half of the time, just under half, but I'm going to say around 20 times. So we've either made contact or we've spoken with residents there. Like Matt alluded to several times, we've gotten up there and there's been no violation that we can take action on. So every time, though, we receive one of these emails, it doesn't get ignored. It gets action somehow. Unfortunately, it's not coming through normal channels. It's coming through an email to the chief of police, who then has to contact somebody that can make stuff happen, which is usually not me at that time. So, and we have to do that. So some education in that. We've told them that, if you call not 911, but you call into the non-emergent line for dispatch, it will happen a lot quicker usually. We can get officers up there, but every time that we've received some sort of correspondence from this person, we've responded to it. So
Thank you, Chief.
thank you.
Well, I appreciate Chief and Trent and the officers that they respond, and Laura and code enforcement. Again, in general, not specific to this property, although this would fit this description. They do their job in a way that is responsive to the citizen making the complaint, but also makes an attempt to protect the rights of the person about which the complaint is being registered. So that usually means kind of like walking down the middle of the street, you're going to get hit by cars on both sides. Usually neither side is happy with the work. We just want our staff to know we appreciate their professionalism, even when it otherwise might not be recognized.
Well, thanks for your reporting on this. Lets us know that you guys are looking into it and taking the appropriate action on each concern that's being brought up. Thank you.
Thank you.
And on that, any other comments? None being, we call this meeting adjourned.